think others have tried to create Latino brands. And I think that what you see now is people using like the word Latinx or referring to Latinx culture, and they put all Latin American countries into one bucket, which is not accurate because they're all very different. Mexican culture is very different from Chilean culture, is very different from Peruvian culture, etc. So I had never seen anyone create an elevated Mexican brand and try to put in the market. I think what I see a lot of are people doing more, like almost more kitsch. They're using the kind of the usual designs, and it looks very like it would belong only in a gift shop, not something that you would see at Nordstrom or like Sephora or Ulta, etc. And so I think there's a lot of those brands that exist, which is fine. There's no problem with that. But again, my point is that we deserve a range. It can be value products, so things at mass market. There can be things that are for gift shops, and there should also be premium brands, because you see that range in American products, you see that range in European products. So why can't we have a range? There was just nothing on the high end that I could find.
This is Jumpstart, where women-led early-stage beauty brands learn counterintuitive insights to accelerate their profitability from $1 million to $100 million without spending a fortune on ads, agencies, influencers, and mindless distribution. With your host, Rohit Banota, ex-P&G and founder of the Toronto-based Jump Accelerator. Together, we can create a more humane, conscious, and beautiful planet, a woman's world. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell notifications.
Hey Sandra, I welcome you to What Beauty Founders Do Not Know podcast, which is all about what is it that early stage beauty founders who aspire to grow big in scale do not quite understand, or understand a bit too late to turn around the ship, so to say. And for all my viewers and listeners, I'll try my best to give a brief intro before Sandra gives it herself. Sandra is the founder of Nopalera, a Mexican heritage and cultura, if I got the word right, a brand that respects Mexican heritage and cultura. Before that, she was heading a band called Pistolera, and she was doing exactly the same thing. She was honoring Mexican culture and heritage. She has released 3 albums. She has toured globally. And I'm talking more about the band because the brand, skincare, she's going to talk about. And her songs did feature in Breaking Bad and Sons of Anarchy. So she has an artistic bent, and now she's getting into hardcore business and doing really well at it. So over to you, Sandra. Tell us your story, anything you want viewers to know about yourself, your childhood. I know you were born to Mexican immigrants in California. Over to you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Yes, as you mentioned, I was formerly a musician. I thought that my purpose on earth was to write songs. I never considered that I would ever become a business owner, let alone a beauty brand owner. No one in my family is an entrepreneur. No one in my family knows anything about finance or business. And I think that my parents would have preferred that I had gone and gotten a kind of like a safe job and worked for the state or the government and had a pension and health insurance. But I did choose to become an artist. The thing that's very important about my childhood is my parents were very proud of who they were, and they passed that down to me. And that is something that, looking back, I'm just so incredibly grateful for, because I have many cousins and family members whose parents, my aunts and uncles, did not pass down, speaking Spanish. They did not pass down the pride, the cultural pride of our heritage. And I like to say that everyone in my parents' house has their fist in the air. So everyone is extremely proud. We're not interested in changing or assimilating or hiding who we are. So that kind of fire inside is what I have carried over into my music career and also over into Nopalera. As you stated, the mission's the same. I'm just now using it for a product-based business.
I agree. And you were the singer or just the songwriter?
I was the singer, the songwriter, the guitarist, the roadie, the tour manager.
Wow. And the genre of music was?
It was Latin music. So I sang in Spanish. It was a guitar, accordion, bass, and drums. So very much like a Latin rock outfit.
Love it. I would take a listen after this recording for sure. Let's get to, I was listening to you on one of the other podcasts that you did, and you spoke about how you were in $100,000 debt. That blew my mind. And did you borrow more money to kickstart Nopalera then? What made you so confident? Was this the first time you were trying a venture thinking you would make it big, or you had this feeling before? Because I heard you said you went on a pure hunch, but obviously you were trying to live up to the same values or bring the same values of Mexican culture and heritage through some other medium, which was your band. And that had worked, that had clicked for you. So you obviously had some validation for that storytelling. But other than that, were you confident that you will taste success?
So I think to answer your first question, yes, confirming that I started with $0, negative dollars, as you said. I was
Negative 100K.
Yeah, had student loan debt, had personal debt, because I had chosen to be an artist, and the money comes and goes. It fluctuates wildly when you're a musician. And I always had a day job for health insurance. And so my last day jobs were actually in sales for CPG brands, food and bev brands. And that's really where I learned and understood margins, distribution, branding, marketing, team, everything I learned through working for other brands, which was incredibly valuable. I think that having some kind of experience is, I don't want to say it's required, but it definitely is helpful as you go to build your own business, your own team, etc. And I started Nopalera with a very strong, obviously bold vision, right, to build an aspirational Latina brand. And the confidence came from just seeing what I was seeing with my own eyes in the market, which was no premium Latina brands, and knowing that I am that customer. I spend money in beauty. I know that other Latinas do as well. And why were there just no offerings for us? I'm seeing a lot of heritage brands in Ayurveda. I'm seeing African heritage brands, but I'm not seeing anything in the premium space, right? Because there definitely are Latina brands at mass, at Target, at Walmart, but I was not seeing anything in premium. And to me, that's where the opportunity was. And I knew that the customer was passionate, that they were there, that if I built a brand for them, that they would get it immediately. So I really built the brand intentionally to be very culture forward Latina. So it'd be obvious that this was by and for Latinas, but also I wanted to make it so irresistibly beautiful that others who did not know what a nopal was would want to know. They would want to be a part of it. And so everything that's transpired since then is exactly that. And it was all by design.
Love it. So do you pronounce the brand as Nopal or it's Nopalera?
So the brand is Nopalera, but the plant is nopal, and which is just the Spanish word for what you call in English the prickly pear cactus. And nopalera is just the name of the plant when it's in the ground. So my parents have a nopalera in their front yard. It's also the name of a cactus patch. Like when you have, I don't know, like a cornfield, or you have a field of something, you refer to it as like a field of something. So a nopalera is really like a patch of cactus.
Perfect. And is Nopal like a place in Mexico somewhere?
It might be, but it's really just the name of the plant.
Got it. Perfect. Tell me one thing. I'm slightly curious. You had some community with your music band, around your music band. And did you first go through that route when it came to Nopalera skincare brand?
I think that I also created Pistolera back when I was a musician to clearly celebrate and elevate Latino culture and tell our stories. And so I knew it would resonate with our community. But when you're an artist or a musician, whether it's a dancer, painter, musician, whatever, it's really a medium for self-expression. So you're really first doing it for yourself. You're doing it because you want to express yourself. And then you hope that other people will like it and will pay money to come and see it. They'll buy your whatever it is that you're selling. When you're building a business, it's very different. You're building for the customer first and foremost. So it had to start with who this was for. Even though I'm a very forward-facing founder, the brand is not about me. The brand has to stand on its own. The brand has to be about our community. It has to be about our customers. And that's a different mindset from building a business than it is from being an artist.
I was reading that Latinas have the highest percentage of population in terms of women entrepreneurs launching in America or something to that effect. And then I speak to you, I've spoken to other Latina founders. Maybe they're very bold, I was thinking. And even listening to you now, I get a feel that you're very confident and bold. You wanted to speak about Mexican culture and heritage, highlighted, put the spotlight on them. Was there any other brand before you which had tried to do the same?
I think others have tried to create Latino brands. And I think that what you see now is people using like the word Latinx or referring to Latinx culture, and they put all Latin American countries into one bucket, which is not accurate because they're all very different. Mexican culture is very different from Chilean culture, is very different from Peruvian culture, etc. So I had never seen anyone create an elevated Mexican brand and try to put in the market. I think what I see a lot of are people doing more, like almost more kitsch. They're using the kind of the usual designs, and it looks very like it would belong only in a gift shop and not something that you would see at Nordstrom or like Sephora or Ulta, etc. And so I think there's a lot of those brands that exist, which is fine. There's no problem with that. But again, my point is that we deserve a range. You can be called value products, so things at mass market. There can be things that are for gift shops, and there should also be premium brands, because you see that range in American products, you see that range in European products. So why can't we have a range? There was just nothing on the high end that I could find.
Love it. And because nopal, obviously everybody knows it comes from Mexico. So
Correct.
that was the connection. You made two very good points, and I want to address both. One was you were not a typical Latino brand where they combined everything into one. And because there are nuances, there are differences amongst those countries and their cultures, they were never able to speak very intimately to one audience. So that was one. Second is, which I'm very curious about, this is what I've seen with Ayurvedic brands. Ayurvedic brands that are not able to sell to the Caucasian consumers don't do well. And I've seen this time and again, there's so many of them crop up and they might have great products. But I see this consistent lack because ultimately, if you just go by percentages and the influencers that are there in America, like not stereotyping or anything, but I think a brand success, and that is what you also address, that Nopalera is a brand that has gone beyond Latinas now, right? Am I right in making that assumption?
Yes, the goal was never to make a brand only for Latinas, because there's nothing about our products that are for a specific skin type. Example, I always use Black Girl sunscreen as an example. Black Girl sunscreen was created for Black women because the sunscreen that was on the market was creating a white cast. And so clearly those people that were making those products were not taking Black women into consideration. So Black Girl sunscreen now exists. It's filling that void in the market. But Nopalera, Latinos, I'm in all shades and colors. So this is not anything having to do with what you look like. This has everything to do with an emotional connection to the product that is on the shelf.
What percentage of your consumers would you say Latinas, and what are other ethnicities? I'm just curious.
Yeah, hard to give the precise number. We're always polling our audiences, and we have, surveys set up at, website. But ultimately, we're not the census. We're not really allowed to just ask people like, what is your ethnicity? It's not we're not the U.S. Census. But based off of the surveys that we have taken and over the course of the last 3 years, we know that a large percentage of our customers are Latina. And just by default, the majority of Latinos in this country are of Mexican descent, because Mexico is just a massive country. It's connected to the United States, right? So people have shared with us that they're like me. They're Mexican American, right? Their parents were immigrants, or maybe even they were immigrants, but they've been here, they're up here. And it's like at least half are Latinos that are buying our products.
To poke a little bit into, you made a Latina brand which was, in terms of branding, in terms of formulation, in terms of range, it was at par with the best indie beauty brands, which also influenced those Latinas to go for that brand, not just the consumers outside. Is my gut, am I right in this?
Yes, absolutely. The approach was to make a brand that Latinas would recognize themselves in immediately, but also others would just want to be a part of it because the branding and the brand and what it stood for was just beautiful.
Okay, so last question on your background and how brand got created. So your musical background, where you were espousing Mexican heritage and culture, and then your CPG experience. Do you think these two were the key ingredients that helped you do it right with Nopalera?
Yes. So I think that having awareness of the market is really important, because I definitely see a lot of passionate founders creating brands out of passion and not necessarily with the awareness of what is currently in the market and how are you going to stand out in this market? How are you going to speak to other people who don't know, who don't understand you? And so definitely working for other brands in CPG gave me those tools. I'm still learning a lot. I still had to learn a lot of new things when I started my brand, working for other brands. I wasn't in charge of the financial model. There's still definitely things that learn if you don't have experience in them, but certainly having some kind of business experience, exposure, very helpful, and market awareness, category awareness.
Yeah, and I heard you speak about in a podcast how you go into an Ulta or Sephora and you notice all the competition products, their pricing, their packaging. I think that was just absolutely brilliant. Like so obvious, so easy, and yet neglected by most of. Are you funded?
I wasn't for the first 2 years. It was me and my American Express card, and having started with negative dollars, and then in our first year of business, having done 600,000 in sales, and then in the second year having done 633,000 in sales, I knew that we hit product market fit very quickly, and it was clear that there was a demand, and I couldn't keep up with the demand. And the working capital loans that were being offered to me through like Shopify or all of these kind of fintech models were just not enough, because as a product based business, you need money for inventory. I think this is one of the trickiest things for emerging brands. Nobody wants to give you money to buy inventory. Who wants to percentage of your business for equity so that you can buy inventory. But at the same time, you also need inventory. So you have to kind of figure out magically, how are you going to get this inventory made? How are you going to innovate? How are you going to produce products? At the end of 22, I finally went out for my first fundraise. It was a seed round. It ended up being a price round. And Latitude Ventures came in as a lead. They invest solely in Latino founders, and it was oversubscribed. So it ended up being like a $2.7 million seed round. Then actually, I had an angel fall through, made it like 300,000. So really, I never really had the 2.7. Mention. I think it's important to state for everyone that when you're fundraising, your legal bill is high. So 100,000 goes to legal right off the top. So there's that. And then I got into the Morgan Stanley Accelerator, which is a very selective, prestigious accelerator that came with investment for equity. And so they are now on the cap table, Morgan Stanley, and they took the place of that angel that had previously fallen through. So it ended up being like a 2.6 raise, really.
So it's still the seed round.
It's still the seed round, yeah.
And how did you go about fundraising? Because this is that founders grapple with a lot. Like, how many pitches did you make? What was your approach? How did you create your deck? I mean, congratulate you and compliment you that in the first year itself, you got $500,000, $600,000 of sales. That is huge. I won't name the brand. I know a brand that went to $100 million in 5 years. They were funded right from the start. In the first year, they did only $250,000 in sales. And I know L'Oreal brands that are like $100 million now in Canada. In the first year, they did around about $200,000. So that's like my golden number. I asked the founder, tell me first year how much you did. So that was brilliant. But yeah, just take me through your fundraising process. Of course.
Yeah. So the process was similar to launching a beauty brand. I had never done it before. So it's everything the first time is a little harder. You have to learn the game. And, people refer to it like as a dance. And I'm like, well, it's kind of like Game of Thrones, really. It's very, it's a tricky game. And I feel like the best way I could explain it is like, if you were going to have to go and learn a new sport, you have to learn a new language, right? You have to learn the rules of this game. And I feel like fundraising is just like that, because you do have to learn a whole new set of vocabulary words. I didn't know what a data room was, 2 years ago. I didn't know what a term sheet was 2 years ago. I didn't know what a valuation cap was. So there was a lot of things I didn't know. And fortunately, I've been in 6 accelerators now. So this is also how I've built my network, because again, I had no network. I was a beauty industry outsider. I'm not a former Estee Lauder executive like many of my competitors. So I really had to work hard to kind of break in and scale the castle wall, so to speak. And one of the opportunities that I had was to be in the True Beauty Ventures mentorship program with Rich and Christina. And that is really where I learned the kind of the fundamentals of fundraising, because the whole purpose of that program was to teach you how to fundraise and to get you fundraise ready. So that was critical, because then I was able to learn the language, learn the game a little bit, and then kind of go out and do it. In terms of making the deck, there's a lot of stuff that you can look up on the internet as to like what your deck should look like. A lot of it is very generic, like what's the problem? What's the solution? Why you? Why now? It's very formulaic. And so you do have to still put your personality into it and tell the story, because ultimately what people are investing in when they're investing in an early stage brand is they're investing in you. So you, as a storyteller, as a visionary, really have to convince people. You have to make people fall in love with you. And that is, I would say, one of the hardest parts that I think is, honestly, for me, I'm going to say like, it's not the hardest part for me because I have 15 years of stage experience. So I know how to command a room. I know how to rally people. But not every founder has that experience. Not every founder is a good public speaker. Not every founder is a good storyteller, to be honest with you, right? And you do have to become a great storyteller, and you have to really come across confidently, because again, people are investing in your confidence, in the confidence of your vision, in the confidence of you to be able to go build that A team. And that's that. I think that might be the hardest part for a lot of founders. Making the deck is like, you can use Canva, you can make any deck as long as you have the key points of like, yes, what is the vision, getting that across in a very clear way. It's more storytelling than it is text. Visuals help a lot. Understanding, showing that you understand the category that you're in, that you understand you have competitors, that you understand what your brand is going to look like in the next 3 to 5 years, having a true vision for that kind of roadmap. Those are things that you do need to have. But I think the hardest part is actually that confidence and that charisma of really presenting and being a storyteller.
Love it, absolutely. And storytelling is something that you were doing through music, so that comes natural to you. So your process was via accelerators, like your fundraising. You were applying to accelerators and then meeting these investors.
So I met my first investors through accelerators. I didn't know how to even find investors. I was like, who are these people that have all this money that they don't want to just put into a bank or a brokerage account? They want to go invest in companies. Like, I can't even imagine that these people exist. So I find the world of venture fascinating. Still, I'm like very fascinated by how it all works, general partners, LPs, high net worth individuals. To me, it's very fascinating that there's just an abundance of money that like doesn't even know where to put itself, and that venture capitalists, their job is to deploy this money, like, because if they don't, they're not doing their job. So I find the whole world very fascinating. My first accelerator was the Credo for Change. So Credo Beauty is now one of our retailers, or one of our best partners. And that led that kind of, it's like a cohort. It wasn't really called an accelerator, but it was like a program that culminated into a pitch day. And that pitch day is where I met my first investors. So that was in 2021. And Christina and Rich were part of those investors that I first met. So they were among the very first that I met. And also met people from like Next World Green, Verity Ventures, several people who I'm now still in touch with, who have been following the journey of me building this brand. And, the thing with this is what I always tell other founders is the thing with people with money is that they know other people with money. So if you can find one investor, you have found 5, because they now can introduce you to other people. And that is how the whole snowball, that's how that whole game works. You have to first meet someone, and get them to like you, so that then you can get them to introduce you to more people who you could potentially pitch to. So that initial fundraise was challenging because I was still very new. A lot of people had known, who I was and what I had been building, but I was very young, right? So a lot of these venture firms, their minimum check size is like 5 million or 10 million, and they can't invest $250,000. And so you hear a lot of VCs saying like, well, you're a little too early for us. Or maybe keep in touch. Let us know when you gain more traction in a major retailer. Everyone, they want to mitigate their risk. They want to know that people really want this product. They're buying it over and over and over again. So for the early stage, it's very hard because you need that capital to even get that opportunity to prove yourself. And that's kind of like that catch-22, right? It's like, yeah, you need money for inventory, but you're also not supposed to raise money for inventory. So, then where's that money going to come from? Because the inventory lenders also don't want to give you money until you have money. So it's this whole cycle of money begets money. Like once you have money, then that's when you go out and you get a loan for inventory. That's right. That's literally the best advice I could give any founder is like, if you are about to raise, once you raise, go call a lender and get a loan, get a working line of credit, because no one wants to give you money until you have money.
I agree. There must be other beauty founders that you must have met who have crossed $500,000 in sales. They have decent branding. The brands might be decently differentiated, if not as differentiated as yours. What is it that they miss about fundraising? Is it the effort that they put in meeting the VCs? They don't stay in touch with them after they are told that this is not the right opportunity. What do you see as the gap?
Well, it's an interesting question, because I would also say that the opposite has happened, where people have had no traction whatsoever and people have given them money. So I think that's important to state because I think a lot of emerging founders feel bad that like no one wants to give them money. But I want those people to know that there's other founders out there that started with an idea and people gave them money pre-seed, you know? So I think that's just important to state that some people started with connections. And so there's that.
Only reason it was just the connections that they got the money because.
Yeah, the idea, they sold their idea before it was actually a product. And they, I know people who have sold into retailers off of an idea before they even had a physical product or traction. So I think that's important for people to state because the longer that I'm in this industry, the more I realize how inequitable it is. And that it's not just about how hard you work. Do you have a good idea? Are you passionate? There's so many more things that go into it. There's a lot of politics that go into it. So I think that's important to state. I'm very transparent because I don't like to mislead people and let them know and let them believe that, well, if you just believe and you have a community and, you make a great product, then you're going to get into Sephora, because that's just not true. So I guess remind me your question again, your actual question.
The question was, what is it that beauty founders who do get some traction and they are differentiated, their branding is decent, they have decent loyalty, why is it that they don't get funding? Not all of them or most of them don't get funding. Is it just for the pure lack of effort? And second, you answered maybe it's the lack of connections, or maybe it's also that they're not trying hard enough. I'm absolutely with you that life isn't fair. There's not much equity. But you see, that did not stop you, Sandra. So we have to understand that if life is not, this is just my opinion, if life is not fair, you got to put in that much extra effort. And I had this amazing founder once who told me, she's an African American. She said, my mom told me I have to work 10 times harder than somebody who's fair skinned and, let's be honest, Caucasian in America to get the same level of trust. But of course, you don't want people to focus on it, but just be cognizant of it and then give it your all. Right. So my question was, what is it that founders don't understand? And I get it. Maybe like what you are implying is that it is way harder for such founders. So maybe they are trying a lot, but they're still not getting it. But is that the only reason, or there are some fundamentals also that they might miss at times?
Well, I think there is also this part that's very hard to quantify, which is timing, market timing. So if I had started this brand 10 years ago, I do not think that I would have the success that I have because I don't think the market was ready. I don't think that people, even though Latinos are not new, right? We've been here all along, but it took look what it took for retailers to finally bring Black-owned brands into their stores. It took someone getting murdered, right? It took laws getting put into place and people taking a 15% pledge. So retailers, as much as they want to be forward-looking, they're often behind. They're kind of often the last of the party. It's hard to make change in big corporations. And so I think that there is a part that's timing, that right now, Latino culture is cool. You see it. We are headlining Coachella. We are topping the Billboard charts. Christian Dior just came out with an entire collection inspired by Mexico. You see all of these things, these social cues, right, that are happening where we have cultural currency, right? And so I think that that's something that there's no way I could have planned that. That is just it just so happened that I decided to build my brand in this era that we are all collectively in, right? And if we fast forward 50 years, there might be like 10 brands, 20 brands like Nopalera, and it might not be as unique anymore because it might be normalized, So I think I just say that to say that I don't want people to feel bad that they're not working hard enough. There's something wrong with them. It could also be that their brand just doesn't stand out. There is also that aspect, right? So it's, again, not a question of are they working hard enough. I can't speak to how hard other people are working, but I can speak to the fact that it's a very crowded market, and do we need another face serum? Do we need another insert, whatever, right? And so what is it, that is going to make your brand like stop the noise? Because investors, retailers, they review thousands and thousands of brands. Imagine like how many decks these people have seen, and what is going to be the one that makes them stop and go, wow, I have never seen this before. This is interesting, right? So I think that it could be branding, it could be network, it could be, I definitely know emerging founders who created their brands who are very passionate for their brand, but they're not passionate about business. They're not passionate about winning. And there is a difference. This is why we have a lot of Latino entrepreneurs who kind of don't go past that 6-figure mark because they stay small, right? And that's not a bad thing. It's all about what kind of business do you want to build? And that's an important question that every entrepreneur should ask themselves. and look in the mirror and be very clear. Like, am I building a brand to win globally? Or am I building a brand that I just want to be in control and I want to do everything and I want to make everything by hand? There's definitely those people, and that's fine, right? It's just about being very clear about what you're building.
Love it. That was very elaborate, and I think it's a great value add to any beauty founder who's listening. Tell me one thing, two things. The first is you spoke about timing and the culture part, right? That's pure luck in a way. You don't know when their timing will be right. But do you think if somebody starts understanding culture, like there are, I forgot the name, it starts with PW Research Center. There are people who study the culture across the globe. What I'm trying to say is maybe it's stupid, but before venturing into anything, you can just try to understand what's happening in the world and maybe increase your odds of success, right? Am I right in that or no? Because everybody says market timing is the most difficult thing, like it's impossible. Because the examples that you gave me were with culture, but there could be other trends that got timed which nobody even would have thought of. So I'm with you, but do you think like somebody can do some research because you're a research expert and think if the timing is come?
Absolutely. You can absolutely go and hire third party researchers or buy reports to understand what is happening in the world at large. I mean, I think, we talked about Ayurveda. You brought up Ayurvedic beauty, which I think is a great example. It took a long time for Ayurvedic beauty to really kind of catch on in the mainstream, right? For people to understand and really build this like romance vision of rooted in, ritual, ancient secrets, but backed by science. And you see, I'm friends with a lot of the Ayurvedic brands now, right? So you have, like Ranavat, you have Fable in Maine, you have Sahajan. And so it's now more normal, but it took a long time for that to get to this place. And I think it also has to do with understanding cultural perceptions here. Growing up, it was not cool to be Mexican. And now all of a sudden Mexico is cool. So that I think is just fascinating because I, in my short life, have witnessed this like cultural transformation of how people view Mexican culture just in this country, right? How people view it in other countries, I can't really speak to, but I was born and raised here. And I say that because I was having an interesting conversation with one of my mentors at Morgan Stanley, who said, and she works in beauty M&A, so she has seen all the big deals. And she was saying, we were talking about this exact thing about people's perception. And here was the example that she brought up. People's perception of Chinese goods in the United States is that China produces a lot of cheap things, right? We think like cheap plastic. We think of a lot of it as like fast fashion, right? So that's a cultural perception that people have here in this country about goods coming from China, right? When you see that sticker made in China, it doesn't evoke luxury in your mind, right? And so that's a perception. And so it would be very hard for then a brand to really kind of break that narrative here in this country and build, like, let's say, like a prestigious or luxury Chinese skincare brand. Whereas when we think Korean skincare, we all have this perception in our minds of like this very intricate 10-step, beautiful skin, right? And that's our perception. None of this has anything to do with, by the way, what the truth is. This all has to do with perception. And just speaking to what you're saying about understanding cultural shifts and norms in this country, definitely. I think I didn't go and buy research because I just bet on myself and what I was seeing with my own eyes. But it's certainly something to consider.
That's my insight of the day. What a beautiful line you said. It is the perception, not the truth, which is exactly and what Y Combinator also says, make something that people want, meaning they might need something better, but that's a different story. It won't sell because they won't buy it, right? And that's amazing. And so many times I see founders, including me, trying to sell something that they really need because we want to have that integrity, we want to be honest. But then we realize that, hey, but they don't want it. They're not going to use it. So there's no point. So make something that people really want. Let's move to your wonderful 300 independent stores that you work with. I love it. What a great insight again. And you're doing better with them versus names like Nordstrom. And it'll be a great, insightful lesson for beauty brands. Everybody goes, oh, if I get into this big name store or that, like because they see traffic, right? And I call it the illusion of numbers. Like you go to a trade show, there will be 1,000 buyers. Even if I get 10, I'll make 100 grand and I'll come back and I'll do the rest of the work. But then they don't even get one. And the same with the big, it's better to win in a small place with people who will support your brand. So I just want to hear from you and enlighten the early stage beauty founders who totally miss these beauty boutique stores, who do not give them the importance that they truly deserve? Please.
I think it's important to understand the difference between a credibility account and an account that makes you money, because they're not always the same. Right. There's a lot of brands that sit on the next best thing shelf at Sephora, see that they're making no money. Hopefully they're breaking even after marketing expenses, et cetera, store staff education, sampling, right? It's very expensive. And so Nordstrom is a great example of an account. When I say Nordstrom, people go, ooh, you're in Nordstrom. Oh my God, that's so amazing. Same thing with Whole Foods, right? When I used to work in CPG, people would say, like, if I said, oh, this brand that I'm working for is in Whole Foods nationwide, they would go, oh my God, you're in Whole Foods. That's so amazing. I'm like, they're making no money from Whole Foods. They're making no money from Sephora. So it's important to understand what is a credibility account and where the actual money is made. And you do that by looking at your bank account and looking at the P&L and really looking where are the orders really coming from. And I think this is why omnichannel is so important. From the very beginning, we've been omnichannel. We've never just been a D2C brand. We've never just been with a retailer. We've never just done wholesale or just been on Amazon. We've always done all of them, because you want to collect data and measure and see, like, where is this working? Where are people really shopping? There might be an account that's like a credibility account that's great to say, like, yes, and we're in Nordstrom. And then you know what people do? They go to Amazon and they buy the product, right? But they heard that you were at Nordstrom. And so then that gives them the confidence to go and buy your product wherever they shop, because people shop where they shop. They don't wake up in the morning and say, well, today I'm going to shop D2C, and then tomorrow I'm going to shop wholesale, and then on Wednesday I'm going to shop prestige, retail. They just go where they go, and hopefully your brand is there, right? So there's brand awareness, there's credibility, and then there's actual revenue and profit. So I think that's important for people to just know the distinction and just be prepared to be disappointed by a prestige retailer and know that you need to go and find other channels.
Why is it that, like, what is the secret sauce? Like, what is the reason that a boutique store does better for you versus what drives your sales from boutique store versus a retailer like Nordstrom?
Yeah, it's because these boutiques are highly curated and they're small. So we are not on a shelf with 500 brands. We're not on the 5th floor. We're in one small 500 square foot store that has a very highly curated selection of items. And so the customer is not confused. They don't have 25 soaps to choose from. They have maybe 3 or maybe 2. And so it's highly curated, number one. That's the beauty of the boutiques. Number 2, there's so many of them. There's like thousands of boutiques around the country. And people, like a lot of people live in small towns and they shop locally. And so they go to their local curated concept store, their home goods store, boutique, right? Lifestyle store. And that's where they discover new brands. I get messages all the time from people who are like, I was on vacation in like Bayfield. I actually got a text this morning. Someone said, I'm up here in Bayfield, Wisconsin, which is like almost near Canada, right? Like way up there. And I walked into a store and there was Nopalera. And just like incredible, right? Or I get texts from people like, I was on vacation in Idaho and I walked into a beautiful gift shop and I saw your product. And so just imagine people discovering the brand in all these places, in these like smaller towns, which we kind of take for granted. But most of America is people not living in big cities.
I agree. That's such a brilliant insight. And also because the owner and the staff there, because the curation is not that big, they will get educated and they will recommend, have some personal rapport with the locals there, right? And they'll take more involvement. Does that also play a role?
Absolutely. And I would say that's also the beauty of a retailer like Credo Beauty, which is also highly curated, but a beauty store only. And you have the people that work at Credo are like the best. They know so much about all of the brands, and they're very good at educating the customer in a very casual, like girlfriend kind of way. They don't bombard you with scientific terms. They just say like, oh my God, this one is amazing. Like, let me tell you how it made my skin feel. It's like, how you talk amongst your friends. And that is really the best kind of sales rep, because that's ultimately how people think and talk, right? Most people are not scientists or formulators. They don't need to be bombarded with a bunch of like words that they don't understand. They just want to know, how does the product smell? How does it make you feel? Did it work?
That's so amazing. Absolutely amazing. I loved it. I always used to think, because when I would go to Sephora, I used to think, why doesn't this girl does a bit of technical talk with me? Like she would just come in, and she was very casual. Instead of looking at my skin and saying which is what a derm would do or an esthetician would do. So that is the secret of the channel. That's such a great insight, Sandra. I absolutely loved it. Amazing. Tell me one thing: the sales that you might get from a boutique store in a month, let's say your best store, what is the percentage of it that you will get from one Nordstrom store?
As an example, we just actually talked about this today in our meeting. We have a boutique in San Diego, which is actually my hometown, in San Diego called Art Alexia. The owner, her name is Alexia. So it's art, it's like Art Alexia. So that's the name of the store, Art Alexia. And it outperforms all of Nordstrom, period. Like not even a Nordstrom store. It just outperforms Nordstrom as a whole.
It's one store.
It's one store. Well, now she
Wow.
has two. She opened a homeware store next door. So she technically has two stores. But still, it's right. It's a small boutique the size of my living room. And she's in a great location. She has incredible foot traffic, and she is known for the types of products that she sells, which are very highly curated, beautiful Mexican wares. So it's a Latino store. It's also one of the incredible things because people go to it for that reason. And she just surpasses, she's always like number one. She just surpasses, all of Nordstrom's as a whole. Again, because this is what happens when you know who your customer is. And when you speak to your customer and you create a retail environment that's inviting to a specific customer. And
That's just golden for me. That's such an amazing insight. Be in a store where people who are a fit for you go to, like they say, fish where the fish is, like where your target consumer is, and then less competition. So I'm assuming you might be one of the very few, or maybe the only Mexican skincare brand there, right?
yeah, I think there's like one other Bath and Body brand that they have. They might have like a couple because she really tries to feature Latina brands. But even still, it's not like there's 25, you know what I mean? It's not like going to the grocery store. And so it's just very highly curated, and the entire store is an experience. It's beautiful to walk into. You want to look and touch everything. It's very hard to leave without buying something. So she's really created a true retail experience, which is what a retail store should be. It should be an experience, not just a store with stuff on the shelves.
Everything that I would have said, you are saying it. So, retail is about immersion, and the same goes for brand story. Be in a place where you can immerse people in your story. And the story is Mexican, like caters to the Mexican audience. They are already immersed in that story. You will do way better than just being one of the brands. Wow, such a great insight. Maybe few people should learn from it and try to approach the right beauty boutique stores for them, and they will make much more money. That was brilliant. Now, we discussed what the other beauty founders don't get, whether it's fundraising, whether it's their differentiation, branding, etc. Let's talk about these 300 beauty boutique stores itself, or your top beauty boutique stores. Did you indulge in a few initiatives to move the velocity up from these stores, the throughput? It could be staff education, anything that you want to say. And then you saw a marked improvement, even with these small, cozy, immersive, experiential boutique stores.
We definitely, after a period of time, we learned who are these top boutiques, like who are like the top 20, let's say, and then understanding where they are. It's no surprise that they are in regions that have a very big Latino population. They're mostly in California. They are in Texas. They are in Chicago. And so this year we actually invested a lot in brand by going and doing pop-ups, in-person events, because people want to meet us. They want to meet the team. They want to meet me. They're very connected to the brand emotionally, which is what every brand ultimately wants. You want real customers that actually care about your brand ethos, not just the functionality of your product. And that was really successful. We were even impressed how many people came to engage. People were lined up to wash their hands and to try the exfoliant. And we had a hand masseuse. We had a photo booth. So we tried to make it also interactive and make it memorable. But that's what we tried this year, and it's something we might not do as many events next year because we did a lot of events this year, but certainly identifying who are those repeat boutique purchasers and understanding why, like what's happening in your town that this is working so well. Is it just demographic? Is it because you don't have any competition? With Arte Alexia, her store is just in a great location, and San Diego is a very popular town, and it's in an area where people are walking, which is very unusual. As for California, people are in their cars. So she has this incredible foot traffic. And there's just no store like her. That's what we did this year to really like increase velocities at those boutiques, was showing up.
And did you choose like a customer appreciation day or something that they do where they invite their customers, or was it like an exclusive an event that you decided to do and then she marketed your event? Like which way was it?
It was a collaboration. So they marketed to their people, we marketed to our people. We created an Eventbrite, and so we got RSVPs to understand how many drinks are we ordering here, and then we promoted across both socials. And just heavily promoted it by email, through our socials. We have a highly engaged social following, and so that was just very successful. And I think also timing of the year, we learned this year, like once it gets to like November, everyone is tired, so don't do any events in November.
So just to follow up, it wasn't that this is an event that they regularly did and you exclusively sponsored it. You came up with the idea and you told them, let's do an event and then let's market together. And that's brilliant. It's not that even otherwise they would have loved it if you sponsor a customer appreciation day, because they would get loyalty. But in this case, you are getting new people into their doors. So who doesn't want that? Now, what's your ultimate goal with Nopalera? I'm very curious because it's about Mexican heritage and culture. And obviously, like my gut would say you want to take it as big as possible because it's a purpose driven brand. So there is an element of purpose to it, and purpose has to do with masses, right? It's not a niche cause that you're playing into. So what's your ultimate goal?
Well, the ultimate goal, I would say the short-term goal, is to continue to grow and to secure larger retailers that can scale, because the boutiques are great, but we're not going to become a $100 million brand through the boutiques, right? It's a great place to start. Incredibly grateful for their partnership, and also just the model of, there's no chargebacks, there's no marketing fees, there's none of these things that you experience with larger retailers, and they prepay, so it's fantastic. But the next stage of growth for us really involves larger retailers, beauty retailers, right? So Ulta, for example, here in the United States, Shoppers Mart in Canada, Sephora Mexico. And so we're having conversations with several retailers right now, because we're ready. In this year, we invested in brand. We really refined our messaging to be of more global appeal. We also invested in having a chemist. We made samples, we made minis. So now we redid our packaging to be EU compliant. So now it has French. Now we can sell in Canada. And so now we're ready to scale. And so we don't want to go everywhere, right? Because at some point you want to leave other territories for other people that are more qualified and have the deeper relationships in those territories. Like, for example, China really scares me. Like that's a whole new market that we would never tackle on our own, So for us, because we've taken institutional capital, we have to have an exit strategy, right? Like VCs, it's important to know that VCs are not giving you money so that you can run a family business and pass it down to your children. Right. So they want their money back times 10. And so you have to have an exit strategy once you start to take institutional capital. And so we have. And so that will be ultimately something that will happen at some point. But in the meantime, we need to focus on really continuing to go deep, continue to build the brand, gain more customers, more customer loyalty, and really scale in select regions and territories.
Got it. So you'll have to do another round if you want to. Am I right? Like if you want to really scale with big retailers, you will need a fresh infusion of money.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Like there's no way that you need $1 million for samples. Just for samples. That's stuff that you're going to give away for free. So I'm actually currently raising right now like a Seed Plus round on a safe. And so that is for us to continue to build, innovate, build a team, innovate new products, and continue to prepare for this expansion. And then that Series A will then be triggered by a national retailer.
How easy is it to raise money on safe? Because a lot of investors hate it, right?
Yeah, but a lot of investors are totally fine with it. There's a lot of angel investors out there. There's a lot of family offices that do safes. So I think maybe the bigger ones don't do safes, but there's plenty of investors out there that do safes, especially given that we've already done a price round before, that we already have traction in the market, that we are already having conversations with retailers. So I think that also just depends too.
I agree. Pre-seed safe will be much more risky than with somebody like you, where you already have validation, you have business, revenue, profitability, etc. Tell me honestly, and you don't have to answer this, you're profitable now?
No, we started the year profitable because we had a massive infusion of customers from Shark Tank. That was the only profitable month, I believe, this year. So no, we're definitely not profitable, but we're working towards it. Because this year we did a lot of investment. We did a lot of investment in brand and, of course, bringing in the team. This year we 3x'd our revenue from last year. And that has everything to do with having a team now and not me being by myself, and also having products to launch, which is expensive. It's expensive to create new products.
Critical, I agree. And how critical do you worry about profitability, or it's the least of your concern at this time because you were thinking you're in growth stage and you can get fresh money, etc.? How worried you are about profitability at this stage?
I don't think that it's necessarily like, it's not really about like, is it a worry or not? It's more that you have to grow towards that. You have to show that you understand the drivers of your business to get to profitability. Because I think it's a non-negotiable. You have to get to profitability. You can't just be unprofitable for a long time. So for us, our forecast and our projections for next year have us ending with profitability. And that has, again, to do with having a team that can increase the sales. Because now we just need that volume, really. We have kind of the foundation.
So why not open 1,000 more boutique stores? And these 300 stores are profitable for you.
Yeah. But the thing with the boutiques is that it's also hard to manage a bunch of independents. They're easy to manage, but it's the more you get, then that's more relationships to manage. More means more, right? I think also it's important to note that we've actually turned down hundreds of the same amount that we have. We've also turned down hundreds of boutiques because to protect brand integrity, we don't want our brand at every gas station or anyone that just wants to sell the product. So we've been very cognizant of where we let our brand end up.
Perfect. So we finished our section on deep dive. Now I have one single question on when the going gets tough. In your case, the going was way tough before you started, by being minus 100K. That blows my mind. Like how much of belief you must have had in yourself to take more money, more debt when you were already like neck deep in debt. So beyond that, during the course, and you've been in business for like 4 years now?
Three.
And I always tell people, if you are way too long in the business and not making any headway, something is wrong. So, so obviously in your case, traction has been there right from day one. So what was your toughest time? When you launched during COVID, there was no tougher time like COVID after COVID. So, in the business in the last 3 years, what was the toughest time? One single situation. What was your thought process like? And how did you pull through intellectually, and also whether it's what inside you made you pull through?
I'm going to say that the toughest thing was fundraising for the first time, because you see the bank account getting lower and lower, and you have to show up on camera and sell the confidence like you're not worried at all. When you are worried, you're worried that you're not even going to make it through the fundraise. And so that, I think, is the hardest thing, because it's all about mindset, that you have to show up knowing that your visualization of where your business can be is there, but you have to make it through this. You can't let the present moment really kind of drag you down to make you believe that it's not possible. Because I think most people just kind of spiral down and they think, oh, it's not possible. I've never seen $1 million before. I mean, that was definitely me. I had never seen $2 million before. And so really getting over your own mindset hurdles and your own money wounds to be able to show up and really project your future self, I think was one of the hardest things.
Now we are moving to the speed round, Sandra, where I'm going to ask you a few questions. I'll give you a few options. You can choose whatever 1, 2, 3 words that come into your mind. If you want to elaborate, you totally are free to do. But the fun is by answering what's the first thing that comes into your mind. And I always tell this to my guests: you don't have to be politically correct. You don't have to be woke. And because when I upload, I do say not for kids. So you can choose the language you want. Just be yourself, right? So I'll get started with the speed round. The first question is, I have a hunch what you're going to say, but let's see, I'll wait for your answer. What's fake in the early stage beauty market?
What is fake?
Yeah. Mainstream, I know what is fake. Everybody knows. Mm-hmm. But what is fake in early stage beauty market?
Innovation.
That's brilliant. Tell me more. There's not much innovation and things are marketed as innovation?
Yeah, things are marketed as innovation when they're not really innovative. Beauty buyers, retail buyers are not scientists, they're not chemists. They actually don't even know what ingredients, they don't know how to read an ingredient label. And yet, so they're just really following trends. So they think things are innovative, but from an ingredient standpoint, as a formulator myself, I can tell you that 80% of beauty products are exactly the same.
Just a couple of questions on this. Is the story innovative, or even that is not innovative? Like you are
No,
saying that,
the story is innovative.
but there's not much innovation in formulation. It's just repackaged as a story and sold, right?
Yes.
Okay, some credit to them that they at least thought of some story. But yours is innovative because you have ingredients that come from Mexico, so that nobody else has those ingredients, right? So you would classify yourself as purely innovative in formulations, right?
I would say that we're innovative in positioning. I think other prestige, the thing I'm always reminding people is that prickly pear cactus has been used by prestige skincare brands, but they call it the prickly pear cactus. We call it the nopal, and we reorient its origin story to Mexico, where it's from. But we have water and shea butter in our formulations as well. But again, it's about the storytelling and the positioning that makes your brand unique and the emotional connection that your customers have.
Love it. So what you said about innovation also applies to Nopalera?
Yeah, I would say so. It's innovative in that we're using this as our star ingredient. But again, it's all about other brands are using prickly pear. We're not the first brand to use prickly pear, but we're the first one to make it from a Latina point of view.
That's very honest. I love your honesty. So transparent and honest. I absolutely love it. And of course, it's not easy, first of all, to create that story. Using that story to penetrate the market, making consumers aware is a big feat in itself. But I'm very impressed that you are so honest and sincere. Love it. Bootstrap or funding?
Bootstrap if you can until you can't any longer. Avoid VCs if you have your own money, if you're married to an investment banker, if you have access to capital, do it any which way you can so that you have the freedom to operate.
Now, you don't have to tell me, but did you have a bad experience with an investor?
I think there's a lot of challenges with investors. I think you want to find the right one that has experience in your category.
How clear a conversation do you have with your investors? Like how much of freedom you feel when you speak to your investors? Like you have to weigh your words, you have to be careful, or you speak absolutely your mind?
I speak absolutely my mind because that's who I am, but I don't know if everyone else is that way. So my investors know exactly who I am and how I feel.
So you do have very honest conversation. I'm pretty sure after a while they too respect that because you are making things better for everybody, right? Your thoughts on social media?
I think it's critical.
It's critical. Yeah, obviously, because especially with a story, right? Where else would you go and tell the story?
Yeah.
What's next for Latina heritage beauty brands? Like what's next? You have already done the first part, and I should say Mexican, but now Latina heritage beauty brands understand that they cannot just combine all of those regions into one. So you have already shown the way how to succeed. But what's next?
What's next for us is scale. And what's next for the industry is that we need diversity in the leadership who understands the community, because that currently is lacking. So we're talking to beauty buyers who do not understand the Latino community, the Latina buyer. And so that's why the shelves don't reflect us. And
Just a quick question on that. So what do they do not understand? Like one particular example of an instance or something that they didn't get?
They don't understand the ingredient. They think it's new and it's not. It's simply this, like I said, other prestige skincare brands are using the ingredient. I don't think they had to defend themselves, but we find ourselves having to defend the ingredient because of our positioning.
Afraid it won't sell.
Or they think people won't understand. So they've actually never put, a brand like ours on shelf.
Got it. Well, that's very insightful. Standardization of clean beauty?
Yes, I think there needs to be more clarity around it for sure.
And entrepreneurship in one word?
Challenging.
Everybody says that hard, challenging, tough,
Yeah,
and I'm
true.
with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very challenging. It's not as glamorous or nowhere as glamorous as people perceive it to be.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Sandra, your answers were so original. This is the first time I had a Latina on my podcast, and I now know the cultural emblem, if I may call it, or the tone of voice that you use when you communicate and the sincerity that you bring. And I'm pretty sure when you're representing your culture, that you do that with the same earnestness, integrity, and sincerity. And that's what I loved. I absolutely loved all your answers. The insights that you gave are so amazing around independent boutique stores or how to grow with authenticity, telling your story. And you did not beat around the bush at all. I absolutely loved it. I love it when somebody cuts to the chase and gives it like it is. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on this podcast. Any message you have from Nopalera for the viewers or listeners of this podcast?
Yes, please visit nopalera.co and leave a review. Thank you.
And everybody, there are great things happen Nopalera in the new year too. So do go and subscribe to the site and wait for some interesting news and amazing promotions and offers that Nopalera will send you away. Well, thank you so much, Sandra. Absolute pleasure. I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule and helping out other beauty founders.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to this Jumpstart podcast for amazing guests and insights on growing your beauty brand. Visit jumpaccelerator.com and take the quiz today to find out how ready you are to make that jump to more than $20 million. While you're there, don't forget to apply for your free 40-day trial. Till the next episode.